Today on my channel, Planner Friends, we are going to discuss the story of Hannah in the Bible. Every month I've been taking a chapter which has two women in it, and the author compares them. I'll be honest with you, I did something different this month, so I'll explain what I did, but boy, this is one that you really can't be missed, because the story of Hannah is a story for all women of faith. And if you're in a tough place right now, please stay tuned, because you need this story and you need to learn this lesson. So please join me, friends. Hello, Planner Friends, and welcome to my channel. I'm One Crafty Dolo. On Sundays on my channel, it's always about Jesus, faith studies, Bible studies, and I always have a good mug of tea. So do me a favor. We're going to learn today, and I'm going to share what I've learned. So grab some tea, coffee, lemonade, and join me. If you're new, welcome to my community. You're invited to join us. If you're returning, thank you. So I completed the study for the month. I've been doing a monthly study in this book. You can find it at Hobby Lobby. I believe it now has a workbook as well. You can also sometimes find it in libraries, which I think is actually really cool. So I did something a little different this month. This month's focused on, it has two women. Let me just backtrack. It has two women every chapter, and it's supposed to focus on commonalities. This was the one time I didn't see it. And I was so caught up. It was supposed to be Hannah and Miriam, but I got so caught up with Hannah's situation. Let me show you what I mean. So every month I do a dashboard, kind of just to, inspire myself. And here we go. In the front part of this planner, what I do is I quote the biblical passages. So I go through the story in the scripture, and I'm writing it all down because I love the book. The book has been wonderful. I highly, highly recommend it. But I want to understand the biblical story through the words in the scripture. Well, what happened in this case, I wrote all about Hannah and more Hannah. And by the time I got through it, there was no room left for Miriam. And truthfully, I read both first, and then I come back and go through the Bible stories and so in the Bible scripture and so forth. And after I read it the first go round, I was like, well, I don't know how these two link up. I mean, Rachel and Leah, sure. Sarah and Hagar, sure. I mean, she's making connections, and they're not always going to be as connected as these two examples I just gave you. But in this one, I didn't really see it. And Hannah is so incredible. I thought I would just talk about Hannah today, because in my mind, Hannah's story is a very important lesson for us as women in faith. And there's a problem in the story for Hannah with another woman, so I thought I'd bring her up a little bit, because she's kind of the foil to Hannah, although not much is written about this other person. But anyway, and then what I do, if you haven't been here before, is in the back, I kind of break things down and use either my words, or sometimes I quote the book, and so forth. So here we have Hannah. So let me share the story with you. Hannah, all right, her husband was Elkanah, Elkanah. I don't know if I'm saying it right. Elkanah, we'll say that. He had two wives, okay? And one was Hannah. The other was a woman named Peninnah. And Peninnah and Elkanah had children, and Hannah had no children. And this really weighed on her much the way it weighed on Rachel, sorry, and Sarah, certainly in the Bible. And so what it starts off with is explaining how every year her husband would make sacrifice to God, and he would distribute portions of meat to his wives and then children. But even though Hannah didn't have any children and she was bereft, absolutely bereft by this, he would give her double the portions. So here, you know what? Let me go back here and then I'll go back to the verses, okay? So she's married. She's distraught due to her infertility. We see her husband favored her over his other wife. He always gave her double portions regards to meat, and he showed his devotion to her as his wife regardless of her infertility. Like Rachel, she was the chosen spouse, is what the author says. He strove to comfort her through her sorrow. She resisted the insults and mockery of his other wife, electing to pray to God versus getting dragged into the mud. And this is really important because he loves her and he sees her sad, and he would go to her and say, you know, what is going on? You're so upset. Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? Why is your heart so sad? Am I not more to you than 10 sons? So he's saying to her, basically, I adore you. I love you, and I am here for you in this thick and thin. And I think this is a meaningful lesson for us in the modern world, certainly. So with his other wife, Peninnah, he had children. And what Peninnah used to do to Hannah is constantly mock her. She was abusive. She would, she used to provoke her. She was abusive. She was nasty. She would rub her face in it. And she upset Hannah, but Hannah wouldn't give into it. She was deeply distressed. And so what she would do is she would pray and she would cry. She would weep as she prayed, but she would go and she would pray. And so you have this triangle, if you will. On the one hand, you have the husband, Elkanah. You have Hannah. You have Peninnah. He's trying to elevate Hannah. Now, whether he knew what his other wife was doing, it doesn't say. But this other woman was jealous. She couldn't be happy in who she was. Now, think about that a moment, loves. How many people do you know who appear to have the world given to them, to have everything, she had a husband. Yes, at the time, he had 2 wives, but she had the children. So theoretically, in the idea of leveling, in the, what it meant to have children, she was up here, but that wasn't enough. She had to vent and try to squish Hannah down even more. Doesn't that resonate, friends? Ooh, that resonates. I want you to think about the times in your life, and I've certainly experienced this, where somebody just wants to go at you for whatever reason. And it took me, as an introvert, I'm very sensitive. It took me years to understand. And my mom, was helpful in teaching me that someone's problem with you is likely their problem, even though they try to make it your problem. And that's the lesson, one of the lessons from this story. And what Hannah does that's so remarkable is she gets upset, she holds it in, but she doesn't turn around and try to denigrate Peninnah and to their husband. She doesn't turn around and try to harm the children. She doesn't try to harm Peninnah. You know what she did? And this is where it gets good. She rose above it. She went, she prayed, she cried, and then she made a vow. This is the book of Samuel, 1 Samuel 1:11. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all of his days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. Meaning, think about, this is the Old Testament, so think about rabbis with their beards and this and that. It's, I'm going to leave him for holy purposes, is what she's saying. She pledges this. And it's amazing. It's just an amazing story because she's saying she wants a child so badly, and yet She's saying to God, if you bestow this gift upon me, if you see me as your servant, I promise you this child will be devoted to you. And there's a kind of a little aside in the book of Samuel here talking about it, where she's praying and Eli, the priest, I guess rabbi, sees her and thinks she's drunk, because at the time people didn't pray silently, they prayed, and she was praying silently, and she's like, no, this is what I'm doing, this is who I am. So she wanted a child more than anything. She's accused of being drunk. She's dragged through the muck by this other woman who is obviously craven on some level to mock somebody like that and not find happiness within herself. And she turned to God. And she rose above it. And I feel this more strongly than you can imagine. This story resonates on a personal level, like I can't even tell you. All I'm going to say is that I have had people do that, and I didn't respond in kind. I won't go down to their level, and it's not about me, it's about them. And I need you to feel that in your soul today with me. You matter. God sees you. You're valued. And the people who want to make you think and feel otherwise, quite frankly, aren't worth your time and energy. And Hannah saw that. What an incredible role model for us all. She becomes pregnant. She gives birth to a son. She lives up to her pledge and without hesitation brings him to the priest. And the author says, think about how Abraham listened to God and bound Isaac up, how long they waited for that child, he and Sarah, and yet he listened to God. Well, Hannah obeyed her heart and her faith and lived up to her promise as Abraham lived up to his. Her son was Samuel, a great prophet, and every year she would visit him, bringing him a new robe she'd made. She saw in her own life the value and majesty of staying strong in faith, even in the face of mockery and abuse. She rose above it. We can be sad, yet filled with the knowledge and belief of God's presence and greatness. And instead of becoming bitter, and this is the key here, at your situation, at her situation, at our situations, she found solace and refuge in God. She didn't sink down to Penina's level. She rose above it. Her example reminds us that God's in control. No matter what people throw at you, stay strong in God. And it's amazing. So this is the story. She stays in faith. She keeps her promises. And once she weaned him, she took him. Okay, 1 Samuel 1:24. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her along with a 3-year-old bull, ephah of flour, a skin of wine, and she brought him to the house of the Lord at Shiloh. And the child was young, and they brought the child to Eli, and she said, "Oh, my Lord, as you live, my Lord, I am the woman who is standing here in your presence praying to the Lord. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition that I made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord as long as he lives." So that goes through 1 Samuel 1:24 through 1 Samuel 1:28. And then we have Hannah's, the Song of Hannah, the prayer of Hannah. It's the longest of any kind in the Bible, where she just glorifies God. This is 1 Samuel 2:1, and I believe it goes through 1 Samuel 2:10. And it is, please look it up. He will guard the feet of his faithful ones, but the wicked shall be cut off in darkness, for not by might shall a man prevail. She rejoices in God. She is so grateful. She is so honored that he gave her this son, that not only did she keep her promise, imagine how hard that was. She wanted this child so badly, and then she turns him over. And again, she would see him yearly, but oof, right? The Lord helps and brings to life. He brings down to Sheol and raises up. The Lord makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and he exalts. He raises up the poor from the dust. He lifts the needy from the ash heap to make them sit with princes and inherit a seat of honor. For the pillars of the earth are the Lord's, and on them he has set the world. And that goes from 1 Samuel 2, 5, 7, and 8. She understood God's power and might. Samuel goes on to become a great prophet. And by the time we get to 1 Samuel 2:26, Samuel continued to grow both in stature and in favor with the Lord and also with man. 1 Samuel 13:20, and all Israel from down to Beersheba knew that Samuel was established as a prophet of the Lord. Her son, the one she prayed for, the one she pledged, was a great prophet and an ancestor of King David, who is an ancestor of Jesus. So without Hannah, where would Jesus be? Where would David be? They wouldn't have been. Boom. I think, to be honest with you, that's why I took up this whole study on Hannah herself. And Miriam, she's the sister of Moses. It's an interesting enough story, but I just found this one so compelling. Her grace, her steadfastness. Boy, can we learn so much. So here's my challenge to you this week, Planner and Faith friends. I want you to think about people in your life who've decided that they're just going to try to assassinate your character, or snide remarks, their digs, you know what I'm saying. You know these people, and unfortunately a lot of them tend to be women, other women, and I hate that. Think about that, and then think about Hannah. And cloak yourself in this story, and in this grace, and in this majesty, because you too are a woman of faith and of valor and of splendor. And by staying in faith, by rising above the muck, we prevail. Oh, what a special lesson this was. I can't even tell you how much I enjoyed it. Whew. The next chapters is Esther and Rahab. So I'm in that right now as it's June, but I hope that this video inspires you in your own studies and in your own sense of self and your place within God's kingdom. I hope you have a blessed week, Planner friends. Oh, incidentally, the decorations. Okay, really quickly. So I usually keep the same decoration for a month. So you can see here I was using a paper printouts and a paper collection I had. I cut out, I glued, I used markers, and then I kind of got tired of it, to be honest with you, so I just went back to stickers and markers, and I had a lot of fun with stickers and color themes in the markers, and this paper is fabulous. This is a Happy Planner, plain, regular, horizontal planner, and then, as you saw, I just added in I took some happy notes and added in this section back here where I kind of break everything and everybody down and for my own understanding. So, all right, if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope that this today inspired you. And if I can offer prayer for you and lift you up, please, friends, let me know. Have a blessed week. And again, cloak yourself in grace and in that dignity, and know that God's got you. Thanks for your time, Planner and Faith friends. God bless you this week. Bye now.